But today, this is why you're here. And I'm very excited about it as well. Mike Drak is a retirement lifestyle designer. And he really, what I love about what he's going to talk to us about, because everybody always thinks retirement, do I have to plan financially? Where's my money? How much do I have? And yes, that's important. But it's the other part of retirement, I think, that really makes or breaks a lot of people's retirement, whether they're going to be successful or not. Mike is a speaker. He's a senior contributor at Booming Encore, which he may be mentioning here, but it's something you can, I think, join as a member of that club to get information there. He's a best-selling author, 2 books out there. And I'm really excited to and happy to be able to introduce Mike Drak. And he's going to take us through how to design a happy, healthy, and fulfilling retirement. So Mike, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let you share and take it away.
Thank you, Ken. Let me just try to hit the right buttons here. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm very excited about doing this presentation. And it's brand new, as a matter of fact. The ink on it is still wet. It's not dry. And as a matter of fact, I kept changing it, tweaking it, even this morning as I was coming up with different things I wanted to talk about. But I'm very excited because what we're going to be talking about today is why I failed at retirement and why I ended up in retirement now. So it's a very, very important subject. And it's something I want everyone to be aware of. Let me start off with a little background. And I'm embarrassed to say this because I still, I shake my head. I can't believe it happened to me. I worked for 38 years in the banking industry. And during that time, I helped thousands of people save for their retirements. And on top of that, my wife is an investment advisor for one of the major banks up here in Canada. And despite all that experience and knowledge, I still managed to fail at retirement. And I keep shaking my head when I think about it because I'm saying, well, how could that happen? And if it happened to me, guess what? Odds are it's going to happen to a lot of you too, because the primary focus is on the money aspect of retirement. And yet there's all these other challenges, not financial challenges, that I experienced and I faced, and I wasn't prepared for them at all. And that's what my mission is now, is create awareness and tell people, wait, it's much more than the money. You got to be aware of these other things, and you have to be prepared for retirement transition so you can have a successful retirement, because the preparation is going to set you up for the rest of your life, which could be 30 plus years. And it's important to get it right. You don't want to mess up on that. During my presentations over the last year, I've been taking a poll, and I asked people, what's your biggest concern about retirement? And the vast majority answer about running out of money in retirement, which makes sense because the banking industry and the advertisers keep trying to scare people about not having enough money saved up for retirement and things like that. So the focus is on money. But what is interesting is when I ask a group of recent retired people, what's your biggest concern in retirement? The answer overwhelmingly is finding purpose in retirement, which is, unbelievable, right? It was an eye-opener for me to find that out, because the industry doesn't talk about that. They just talk about the money all the time, returns and stuff like that. And these results matched up well with recent studies done by Ken Dykewall over at AgeWorks. So they did polling. They had a lot more people they polled and things like that. And they said that 92% of retirees agreed that finding appropriate levels of purpose is key to a successful retirement. So that's the answer. But, we don't talk about it enough. And they went on, did other polling. They said that 93% of retirees believe it's important to feel useful in retirement. And if you feel useful in retirement, it makes them feel youthful, that they're still contributing, that they're still relevant. This is so important to a person's well-being. And again, it's something that we don't talk about often enough.
Click in the middle of your screen and then hit the arrow.
Okay, no, I got I can use the mouse here. Okay. This is one of the benefits of the pandemic is that we got we were taught some important retirement lessons. And one of the most important ones was realizing how important having a good source of purpose is. So many people were stuck at home. And, you know, if you didn't have something of substance to do, like if you couldn't work from home, you slowly started losing your mind because you didn't have anything important to do, anything that would occupy your time other than just trying to survive and watching news updates on the TV. And a lot of people woke up to the fact that, you know, maybe working isn't that bad after all. Maybe working serves an important purpose. And it's far better to do work and work at something than just, you know, spend the day killing time and watching TV and maybe taking a dog out for another walk around the block. Even the dog was getting tired of that. And, you know, it was a good learning experience saying, okay, we need to find a good source of purpose or we're slowly going to start losing it. And a lot of us did lose it for a period of time, right? Okay. Purposes changes, priorities shift over time. So when we were younger and we were going to school, well, our purpose was to get a good education and to work hard so that when we graduated, we could get a good job that paid good money. That was our purpose. And that, you know, that was the thing we focused on. And then when we got that job, our purpose changed again. Our purpose was to work really hard so we could climb the corporate ladder and get promotions and make more money and, you know, get status and things like that. Those are the things that were important for us at that period of time. And making money was important because then we could use that money to fund our other sources of purpose that we had, right? Maybe hobbies or things like that. So work was a very important part of our lives. It played a very important role. And then things changed again that, you know, some of us started, you know, decide to get married and start a family. And all of a sudden our purpose changed overnight. Our purpose was to take care of our family and take care of our kids and make sure they were safe and make sure we could put a roof over their heads and food on the table and pay down the mortgage. And that job was so important because it allowed us to cover off that important purpose we had. And, you know, it's important to understand that. I'm sorry, I'm hitting the wrong button here. And then one day, what happens is that our purpose changes again. When the kids leave home and we retire, and all of a sudden things change again for us and we need to find a new source of purpose. And until we do that, you know, we're a little bit stressed out because we no longer have to drive the kids around to sporting events or maybe to parties with their friends or things like that. And it almost feels like our very identity is slipping away because that role's gone. And we need to find this new source of purpose. And until we do that, we're going to struggle and we're not going to be very happy at all. So here are some important facts about purpose. People at every stage of life are happier when they possess a sense of purpose. So you know what your role is, you know what you need to do. You have that good reason to get out of bed in the morning. And like I said, in retirement, you might not have that for a while. And it's important that you get that back. And then the next point is people with the highest sense of purpose live significantly longer than those with a lower sense of purpose. And this is very important. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. And it doesn't matter on your educational level. It's important that you have this source of purpose. And it's more important to make sure it's a good source of purpose. So if you think about a lower sense of purpose, well, in my neighborhood, when I walk around in the morning, I'll see retirees outside. And many of them spend the whole day pulling weeds out in their front yard. because they have nothing else to do. And that's the only way they can get some socialization. That's why they only do it in the front yard, because they're hoping someone will walk by and say, hi, how are you? Are you having a good day? And it's pretty sad when you think about it, but so many people do that. If you walk around, you'll see it. And now the new thing I noticed they do is they work on the interlocking in the driveways. So, they're pulling weeds out of there and they're straightening them up, pulling the bricks. They do this thing for the whole summer. That's the only thing that occupies their time during the day. And I get concerned, what are they going to do during the winter? Because they won't be able to do that. And then they're going to be in trouble. People with a higher sense of purpose, we've seen it during the pandemic. These are the people that maybe went and volunteered to help out their elderly neighbors, go to shop at the grocery store because they were scared to go there and maybe catch the virus. That's a high sense of purpose. That makes you feel really good. You're contributing and things like that. And that's why these people that do things like that live longer than most. It's pretty simple when you think about it, but a lot of people don't realize this. Having a good source of purpose is more important for reducing mortality risks than drinking, smoking, or exercising on a regular basis. This is amazing when you think about it, because all the literature, all the books, it's about, oh, you got to change lifestyle, you got to exercise, you got to eat healthy, you got to do all these things so you can increase your longevity, your time on this earth. But yet, having a good source of purpose beats all that, trumps it all. But we don't talk about how important the source of purpose is in our lives. So that's an important takeaway. Here's another one. People with a high sense of purpose are 2.5 times more likely to stay sharp in their 70s and 80s. Well, there's a lot being written on dementia and Alzheimer's these ways, and how we can maybe prevent it. And here's a great way of doing it is, make sure you have a good source of purpose in retirement. It's key. And it has all these kind of positives attached to it. So it's important to be aware of that. And the last one, people who were purposeful beyond themselves experienced significantly higher levels of well-being than people who were pursuing goals for themselves. Okay, let's do an example of this one. One of my goals, my purpose, is to get healthy, to get in shape. And that's why I've signed up to attempt Ironman next year at Cozumel. But that's a personal goal for me. But what about if your purpose was to go out and work at a food bank and help to distribute food to other people? Well, you're going to be miles ahead of me, because you're beyond the self. You're helping, you're giving back to your community, you're helping others. And that gives you such a shot to your well-being. It just really, goes sky high. And that's where you want to be. So, it's important to understand that helping others, giving back is probably the highest source of purpose you can get. And if you do that, you're going to be really happy. You're really going to feel good about yourself, because when you help people, it makes you feel good. And when you're happy, and we learned this from the nun study, happy nuns live longer than unhappy nuns. And it holds true for us too. Happy people live longer than unhappy people. People that have a positive attitude live up to 7.5 years longer than people with a poor attitude. So it's very important to understand this thing. And these are the things that we incorporate into our retirement lifestyle design when we get to it later on. But these are the things that you want to be thinking about.
Oh, Mike,
Yes.
just real quick. So then when you're talking about purpose, it's having a sense of purpose and giving seem to go hand in hand. Is that an accurate statement? Because that's incredible data, those 3 slides you just showed.
Well, for some people, because there's different types of retirees. And I'll quickly go through this. There's comfort-oriented retirees. Their biggest goal in life was to make it to the retirement finishing line. And once they reach there, they just want to sit back and take it easy. And that works for them, but that doesn't work for people like me, because I need something more. I need a challenge. I need a source of achievement. If I don't meet those needs of mine, I'm not going to be very happy. And then above that, are these, I refer to them as angels, angel retirees, the ones that give back, that are looking for opportunities to help others, that will go work for a nonprofit or something like that. People that will go out and try to clean up the environment because they're doing it for others. And those are the ones that really, really have this high sense of well-being. And you see people like this. You look at their faces and they're like, they're alive and their eyes are lit up and they're really happy people. And not maybe happy is not a good word, more joyful. Like they've hit the source and they're living it and they're thinking it and they're talking about it. And it really makes them feel good. And that's what retirement should be about, is finding those sources of joy. Purposes comes in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. People can find purpose in just tending their own garden at home. And they can find a source of purpose by providing elder care to their parents or other people. And they can find a source of purpose by taking care of their grandkids. And we saw a lot of this during the pandemic when, the grandkids had to stay at home and, the grandparents stood up and provided homeschooling. And took some of the pressure off their kids so they could go and focus on their jobs. And when they finished work for the day, the kids would come home, there'd be a home cooked meal on the table. Like, it was really good. And it brought a lot of families together and it made a lot of people happy. And now a lot of people are looking at intergenerational living. They're looking at the benefits of that. And there's many of them. And we saw it tested out during the pandemic. Source of purpose could be taking care of a pet. I tell the story of my mother in the book, Retirement Heaven or Hell, about how this cat showed up at her door one day just after my father passed away. And I was worried about my mother. But because this cat was there and he wouldn't go away, she felt this need to take care of the cat. And really, the cat was taking care of her. So she wasn't lonely. She had some purpose, a reason to take care of doing something. And, of course, the cat got really fat because she fed him too well. But what can you do? But it doesn't take much. That's the point I'm trying to say. People can, it depends on the person, what size of purpose they need. But they all need purpose. People find purpose and go back to school. We're seeing 90-year-olds going back these days, maybe to finish a degree they never completed, or maybe they just want to learn something new. But this is what gets them going, and they're so happy, especially when they get that diploma. Oh, man, it changes their life. And some people find purpose in hobbies and sports, like fishing for Atlantic salmon, like I like to do. But it's something we look forward to. It's something we think about and dream about. That's what keeps us going. And when I get the chance to do it, I'm so happy. It's unbelievable. It's a life changer.
A nice looking fish too.
Thank you. But I let them all go. And some people, the crazy ones I refer to as retirement rebels, really challenge themselves. They push themselves out of their comfort zone. And this gentleman here from Japan, he was 86 years old and he finished Ironman. And I can't wait till he turns 90 and he's going to try it. And I'm betting that he gets it done. And it just blows your mind that a person at that number could never mind attempt it, but finish it. It's just amazing. So these people are rewriting the rules all the time. All those old things about being old and acting old, they're gone, thrown out the window. Everything's changed and you have to be aware of that. And everything's possible now. Like we talked, Captain Kirk, he finally made it into space at age 90. That's pretty cool. I like that. That gave him a good reason to get out of bed that morning. And a lot of people are starting to open their own businesses in retirement as a source of purpose because it fills a need for them. And a lot of them aren't doing it for the money. They're doing it because they want to try something new. They finally want to be their own boss. They finally want to provide a service or product to others. And it makes them feel good by doing that. And we're seeing a lot of people open businesses that service the elderly. So it could be a service like home care, or it could be a health product that would help them maintain their health, like Nordic walking poles. A guy started a company doing that. And people are going to a community gym and providing cycling classes and things like that. And the people love it because they love getting to the gym. So you're seeing these 80 and 90-year-olds on the exercise bike, and they're going hard and they're having a great time. And that's a great source of purpose for them. Everyone really feels good about it. And then, of course, the highest sense of purpose is giving back to the community and helping others. And we saw so many people step up to the plate during the pandemic, and they were doing these things. People were even opening new businesses to make face masks and shields and things like that because there were a short supply. And it was so amazing to see it and to see the creativity of these people saying, hey, I can see a problem. You know what? I got a solution. I'm going to try to work on it for you. We're seeing a lot of women start their own businesses. And again, they said there's pulling done. They're not doing it for the money, really. That's a byproduct of what they're doing. They're doing it because it makes them feel good. And it gives them that sense of satisfaction and achievement when they do a good job. So no, it's really interesting to see. Work, the fountain of youth. This is important because for some reason I started reading the obituaries during the pandemic. And I love reading the stories of people that lived a long life. And when you read them, you'll notice that most of them either worked late in life or volunteered late in life. And I really believe that's what kept them engaged and kept them youthful, like that polling by Ken said, and it just keeps them going a long, long time. I read stories all the time about a barber in New York City. He's 102. He's still cutting hair. Like, it's just crazy. But it's fun to see these things. So you don't have to stop at age 60 or 65. You can work as long as you want. But the key is to find something that you love to do. Now you're not working for the money so much. You're working for the joy of working. Sir,
yeah, I was going to say, and Mike, I think that a lot of times people are concerned about ageism in the hiring process. And I know you're talking about maybe finding something a little different in life that you might have been doing maybe to keep you going. But I think when you have the attitude and you have that feeling of joy for work that you're talking about because you found something you want, then people aren't looking at your age. They're looking at what you have to offer and what you could deliver. And I think that's a way around it. I mean, there are some people that are always going to be, against older people, I guess. But if you show that enthusiasm and that you still got it, I think a lot of people will look past the age.
Oh, yeah. When I worked in the bank, I loved hiring older workers because I knew they were battle tested. They were dependable. They had all this experience. They could hit the ground running. So I didn't hesitate. And then I started reading about this ageism. I'm going, wow, that's crazy. But it's true. It's a fact of life. And the reason I started my own business was I didn't want to go hat in hand and having some young person give me a hard time when I was applying for a job, making me feel bad, right? I didn't want to go through that because that's what happens. So I said, no, I'll start my own business. I'll have my own fun. And that's why I took that route, because then you're the master of your destiny. And the success rates for small businesses for older people is a lot higher than for younger people. And the reason that is so is because we have all this experience and we have some seed money behind us, our retirement savings, and we know what will work and what won't work. And that's why these success rates are so high. But, again, everyone's focused on the young people saying, oh, yeah, they started this business and they were successful. No. The odds of being successful are much higher with the older people. So that's important to understand and take confidence from it. Don't believe this stuff that they're writing in the papers all the time. It's all nonsense, but it gets all the press, right? Purpose helps keep you alive. Here, we're back here. This is Charlie Munger. I think he's 97. Warren Buffett, I know he just turned 90. All right. These guys have all the money in the world. They're never going to spend what they have, but yet they keep working. Why? Because they love what they do. And their work gives them a great reason to get out of bed in the morning. And their work is what keeps them alive and keeps them going and keeps them energized. So yeah, purpose through work helps keep you alive, provided you're doing the right work that you love to do. Rolling Stones. There they go. I'm getting upset because I'm reading about these rockers. They're all turning 80 plus. And I'm scared when they're gone because I like rock music and there's no one stepping up and replacing them. But here's Rolling Stones. Charlie Watts just passed away at age 80. But they, up till then, they were touring all the time until the pandemic hit. And now the remaining members of the band are going back out on tour. And why are they doing it? Again, they don't need the money, but it makes them feel good performing in front of an audience. They enjoy that. And that's what keeps them going. And, I'm afraid when a day hits where they can't tour, it's going to be bad for them because they're going to lose that purpose. And I don't think they're going to find a good way of replacing that. And so that's so important. And why would you ever retire from doing something you love? It just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
When Mick Jagger sings "What a Drag It Is Getting Old," right now he probably wouldn't write that song again because he seems to be enjoying it.
Maybe they leave that one out of the set. So here's the story about purpose. And I love this picture because it reminds me of my parents. I remember, my father emigrated to Canada as a young person. They had no money. And so they had to be frugal and be careful with their money and save it and, buy a house and pay down the mortgage, stuff like that. And frugal habits die hard. And after they retired, I would go and visit. And sure enough, they'd be wearing sweaters and whatnot because he turned down the heat again to save some money, even though he didn't need to do that. I always laughed about that. My mother retired earlier than my father, and she got into this habit. She was like I would call a comfort-oriented retiree. She enjoyed living the simple life. At 10 o'clock in the morning, she would watch The Price is Right on TV. And then at noon, she would go and visit her friends and whatnot and have lunch. And then she would come back and watch the soap operas for a couple hours in the afternoon. And at night, she'd make us dinner and that was her day, and she enjoyed it. My father retired. He tried to follow her and do what she did. And it worked for about a week until he finally lost his mind. And he suffered from this terrible case of retirement shock for about a year. And it was terrible. And I remember he kept telling us stories about his old work life and, problems he solved and all these things. And he kept repeating the same stories and over and over. And it was starting to get to my mother and I. And one morning he started doing it again. And she had the classified section from the newspaper, tossed it across the table from him. And there were a couple of part-time jobs circled. And she said, "Here, stop whining, go find yourself a job." And he went out that day. And the same day he got a job, which, back then you could because, jobs were available. But when I found out the job he got, I couldn't stop laughing. Because my father, before he retired, he was managing a group of about 50 people in a large corporation. So they did all the accounting and the books and everything for them. And then he gets this job. And the job was, he was working for one of those small retail pet food stores that you see in the plazas. And his job was to go out a couple of days a week and deliver pet food and supplies to elderly people that couldn't make it into the store. That was his job. And he would go and he would, deliver the pet food, and the people were so appreciative that, he would come and deliver the food and they would offer him tips and whatnot. And he refused to take it because he wasn't working for money. He was working for something to do, for a source of purpose. But having people appreciate what he was doing was all the difference in the world, because he felt like he mattered again. And he was doing something productive and he was helping people. Again, the higher sense of purpose. That's what he got from that simple job. And it's even better than that, because the young person that owned the business was new. He was new at business and he was struggling. And my father became his mentor. And then he could use his old skills, reapply it to help this gentleman run the business and grow the business. And again, the owner was so appreciative of my father, and it made my father really, really feel good. And so that's what purpose does to you when you find the right source of purpose. It doesn't have to be complex. You
And I
don't
think-
have to make a lot of money, but it's life-changing. And to even top it off, he didn't have to watch soap operas anymore. So he was so happy. Yeah. Did you have a question, anyone?
I actually, Mike, I was going to make a comment, and there is a question. The comment is that it also will help with your relationship. If you're married or you have a partner of any kind, to the example you gave with your father is a great one. But also, I think we learned during the pandemic too that getting close is nice, but every now and then you need to separate.
No, you need space.
But the question that's here is that, and it's related to your story about your father, do you find that a successful retirement purpose is usually related to or very different than one's pre-retirement occupation or their purpose or identity, or is it something different?
I find that on average is something different. It's something simpler, but it's something that can deliver on that need for purpose, and it makes them really feel good. Because when you think about with my father, really, he was helping others. So he was a transcender. It was beyond the self. And when he did that, his well-being just soared because he was relevant. He was helping others. He was needed. He knew what was required of him. And he was willing to give that. And like I said, my father didn't need the money. The money had nothing to do with this. It was a source of joy for him. And this simple job was more joyful than that corporate job he had, for sure. And he just loved it. And this is what kept him happy and alive. And, it was wonderful because from then his retirement changed and he was really having fun. Just from that simple job. So that's the lesson. Okay, so this is something I use to find my own source of purpose, and I use it for some of my retirement coaching clients to help them with. And I'm just going to go quickly through it. What you want to do is answer 4 basic questions. So the first time we're gonna use it to find paid work. So the first question you want to ask is, what are you good at? What skills do you have? What knowledge do you have? What do you have a natural talent for? What do you have a passion for? These are the things that we want to figure out. You want to go somewhere quietly and spend some time on this. You don't want to rush it because this is really deep thinking and you're going deep within yourself because all the answers are there. And these questions are just going to help pull it out. Okay. The next thing you think about is, what do you love to do? What lights you up? What puts you in a state of flow where you don't even notice the time because you're so focused on what you're doing. You're having so much joy doing it. So you want to make a list of that. And then you got to say, okay, what problem can I solve? What does the world need? How can I help with that? And you answer that one. And believe me, every company, every organization has problems. And you want to be able to put your hand up and say, hey, I can solve that problem. Let me tell you how. And they'll love you for it. And then again, if you want to make money, is what can you be paid for? What type of work can you be paid for? All right. Now I'm going to quickly go through this, answer it. The first time I did it, I came up with an answer and I kind of dumped it because I thought I could do better. So I thought, what are you good at? Well, I'm good at fishing. I'm really good at it. And I've studied fishing and I read books on it. I watched so many shows on it. I know fishing better than most people. So I know I'm really good at fishing. What do you love? Well, I love it. I love fishing. I love going out there. I get really joy from it. Every time I go out there, I tell you, I get in this like a state of flow. It's almost like a Zen moment. All my problems go away and I'm just focused on the fishing and life's really good at that moment. And then the next question I answered was, what does the world need? And I thought, hey, you know what? I could get a job at Bass Pro. I could work in the fishing department. I could help people when they come in, they're asking what kind of equipment I need for this type of fishing. I could help them with that. I can solve that problem for them. And doing that would really make me happy because I love talking about the people about fishing. And I knew without a doubt, I would be the best salesperson that Bass Pro had in the fishing department because of my passion for it, my knowledge, and I have a need to help people. So it was all lined up. And what can I get paid for? Well, Bass Pro would pay me because I'd be a top salesperson for them. And I'd be a good promoter of their brand. So I looked at it and I said, hey, I'm going to go apply at Bass Pro. That's a natural fit. But then I said, no, you know what? I think I can do better. And what I meant by that is I didn't want to work for anyone anymore. I didn't want to have a boss. I didn't want someone to dictate hours to me. I wanted to have flexibility. I wanted to have autonomy. And those are important needs for me. I said, okay, I can't take that paid job. I can't do it. I got to do something better. So I went back and looked at it again. And I said, what are you good at? Well, I'm good at retirement transition because I've been to retirement hell and I figured out how to get out of that place. So I know it better than a lot of people. I know it better than most financial advisors. And what do you love doing? I love helping people. That's a big need of mine. That's beyond the self. I love helping people because when I help them, it makes me feel real good. So I said, I know a lot of people are going to struggle with retirement transition, and I want to help them. So what the world needs? Well, people need to be educated on a retirement transition. They need to be educated about the challenges they're going to be facing so they're prepared for them. So I had a problem that I could solve through my knowledge and experience. What can you be paid for? Well, guess what? I can sell books. I can do seminars and get paid for it. But I can do it under my own control. I can call the shots. It's a beautiful thing. And that's what I ended up doing. And life's never been better. All because of this little diagram. When you connect those 4 dots, when they align, it's just like you get hit by lightning. All of a sudden you can see and go, yeah, now I know what to do. And you're excited about it because you're playing to your strengths. You're playing to your passions and your needs. And when that happens, like, it's magic. Let's talk about using that diagram for volunteer work. So all we do is leave the first 3 questions and take off the bottom circle, what you can be paid for. And so this is an example of a person that's doing it. It's a story about my friend Wayne. He works up in cottage country, and he's the guy that you would call if you need a new septic tank put in or a well dug for the cottage or things like that. So he has all this experience he developed over years and years, and he has this thriving business up there in cottage country. But then one day with this church group, they were talking about maybe going to Africa and try to find a way to help others. And it kind of came to him after using the diagram, hey, I can go help these villages drill water wells, which is life-saving. It's life-changing because water is a basic necessity of life. And so he went over there with the church group and he started doing this. I think about 5 years ago he started. And now every year he goes back. And he said doing that, helping those people by using his experience and skills was life-changing for him. He sees the world differently. He makes them feel like $1 million. No, maybe what's more than that? Like a pile of diamonds, because he really feels good because he's given back. And he's got this sense of purpose that's so high. It's just amazing. This guy's beaming all the time. You know, it was unbelievable to see the change in him. And thankfully it rubbed off a little bit. Those are the kind of people you want to hang around. So we're going to get back to retirement lifestyle design. So what we do basically is we figure out what your sources of purpose will be. And we use that diagram or where we look at other things and we consider things and we test things out. And then when we have those sources of purpose, we use them as the foundation for the lifestyle design process. And then what we do is construct a lifestyle around that. All right. So if you think about a weekly schedule, Can you imagine having a schedule in retirement? But you need it because you need structure and you need routine, and we're building that back. So a weekly schedule might be, I only want to work 20 hours a week in retirement. So maybe I'll work the mornings of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then I'll have other sources of purpose there. One source of purpose will be, I want to get healthy. I want to maintain my health. I want to live as long as I can in good health. And so I'll schedule in going to the gym, doing workouts, and watching the kind of foods I eat and things like that. So that's part of my lifestyle design. And then I'll have other purposes too, because I have a need for adventure. I want to go out and explore different places. I want to visit different countries. I want to learn new things. These are all important things to me. And I will schedule that again in that weekly schedule. And then I know through the retirement principles that I have to protect and maintain and grow my relationships with my friends and my family and make new friends. So I'll schedule that in too, make sure, I'm seeing them on a regular basis. I'm doing fun things with them. And I'll also schedule in fun things, the things that really make me happy, like a fishing trip or doing a seminar like today or things like that. I schedule that in. And then at the end of the day, I look and I go, wow, this is pretty good. And I actually come up with a perfect day, what a perfect day should look like. And it's really kind of neat. And you go, wow, that's pretty good. And then I build on that. And then when I look at like a monthly schedule or a yearly schedule, I put some of these, big events in there. So one might be a trip. Maybe I want to go to Italy for a couple of weeks. I'll plan that in there. And anything else, maybe I want to go and find a way of giving back to the community, maybe, work at a food bank or something like that. I'll put that in our Habitat for Humanity. So I'm injecting all these sources of purpose. I'm injecting all these fun activities that I like to do. I'm injecting giving back to the community because I know it gives me a big boost to my well-being. And that's the lifestyle plan that I designed for myself. So I'm maximizing my happiness, and through doing that, I'm maximizing my longevity and time on this earth. That's how it all connects together. And what we do is after we design this thing, and this is an important step, is we cost it out. So I say, okay, how much on an annual basis is that kind of lifestyle going to cost me? And so we'll come up with a number, say it's 80,000 after tax. Then I'll go back to the financial advisor and say, okay, my retirement assets, do I have enough to cover the cost of this lifestyle that I've created for myself? And hopefully the advisor comes back and says, yes. And that's life-changing too, because it's for the first time in my life, I know I have enough. I know I have enough to finance the type of lifestyle I want, the dream lifestyle that I want, the one that I know that will make me happy. And when I know that, like, life is pretty good and I can sleep at night. So that's the end of the talk. Here's my contact information if you have any questions after the talk. And also, this is the Booming Encore website where I post a lot of blog articles. It's all about retirement lifestyle and things I find interesting that I think that people could benefit from. And basically that's it. So I hope you enjoyed the talk.
Mike, I think it was a great talk. First of all, I love your slides. You have some really great, powerful slides that really reinforce your message. My question to you is, what made your retirement hell when you first started?
What made it hell was because it came down to my retirement beliefs. I thought, being a banker, I thought if you had a lot of money saved up for retirement transition would be easy. I found out that was wrong. I thought the more money you had, the better your retirement would be. That was wrong. I believe when you retire, all your problems would go away and life would be wonderful. I was wrong on that too, because the problem stuck with me. They didn't go away at all. So I found all these things not to be true. And like I said, the biggest mistake I made was not having something like Ford said to retire to. I didn't know what my sources of purpose would be. I never thought about that. I was just so focused on the money aspect of retirement. I thought I could live this life of leisure like they show on the commercials and all that. That's not true. It's all fake. No one lives like that. You're not going to spend 365 days on a beach drinking a pina colada. Life doesn't work like that. So I had to reevaluate and rethink all this things through. And I found that this connection with work was very important for me. And so then I started redesigning and brought these things in. And I said, okay, I got to design something that will work for me. But you got to remember, not all retirees are the same. People have different needs and wants and different values. So what you have to do is design something unique that works for you. Because I can't live like a comfort-oriented one, just sitting back watching TV all day. I'd lose my mind really quick. But, you know, that works for some people. And there's nothing wrong with that if it works for you. But that's not the kind of lifestyle that will work for me. And that's why I had to design one. But I think the eye-opening one was the part about being of service, of helping others. That was important to me. And I always had that need in me. I loved helping people when I was in the bank, and I just converted it to something else. But really, you know, it's the same thing. And that's what really, you know, makes my life good. Makes me happy.
Thank you. When do you think someone should start planning for that?
Oh, you gotta do it 3 to 5 years before you retire, because it's a long process, and you have to change your beliefs. You have to re-educate yourself about it. You have to understand the challenges, and then you got to start digging deep and start figuring out what will work for you, what will make you happy. Because you find that, and this is what happened to me, in the corporate world, you lose touch with the authentic you. You're not the real person that you are, or the person you want to be, because you've turned into this corporate animal. You speak with like them, and you talk like them, and you do all these things that normally you might not do if you had the power to decide what you wanted to do. So you might have a disconnect in values and things like that. And you're so busy just trying to survive and take care of your family. So when you leave that and you get your freedom back, it takes time to figure out what you want to do with that freedom. And that's pretty powerful too. If people have to understand, now it's my turn again. It's my shot. I get to call the shots. What am I going to do with that? And that takes time to figure it out. But it's so important, because the return on this investment you're making is going to set you up for the next 30, 35 years of your life. And it's just awesome when you get it right. But so many people aren't aware of it, right?
Yeah, I also think, excuse me, a benefit of starting to plan while you're working is you have income, and you could figure out what you want to do, how much money you're going to need before you retire, or maybe even invest in something to get training to prepare you for doing something completely different. Once the money stops coming in the form of a salary, it makes it a little harder to invest in yourself for a lot of people. So I think there is that added benefit to plan early.
No, that's a good point, because what we're trying to tell people is, okay, let's start at 5 years out, and let's figure out what you really want to do in retirement. And then let's put the things in place that will help get you there. So when you actually do retire, you know, we tell people, I'll take 3-6 months off to recharge and regroup, but then start executing on your plan that you already have in place. So you're not drifting, you're not guessing or anything. And you can avoid retirement shock by doing that. And it's also, the benefit is that you know exactly what you're going to do when you retire. So you're excited about it. So you're thinking about it. You have a bad day at the office, you come home and go, hey, wait, 3 more years, I'll be doing this, right? And that excites you, makes you feel good. So no, that's why it's so important to do it properly. But you see, we're not talking about money. We're talking about lifestyle. And that's such an important piece. I could make an argument it's even more important than the money aspect, right? Is to know what you're going to retire to and creating this wonderful life for yourself.
Yeah. And Mike, a question came in that, first of all, a lot of appreciation for the information you've presented today. And the question of, well, there are so many resources out for people to use. What's your opinion of individuals who engage in a do-it-yourself approach to this challenge? Like, just figure it out on your own.
Well, I wrote the books as a do-it-yourself guide. So it's all there. I'm working on the third book that will go deeper into the retirement lifestyle design process. And between the three books, the answers are all there, what you need to do and what process you need to follow. But having said that, some people would need more support. And that's where I urge them to go and find a retirement coach that can hold their hand and hold them accountable. Because anyone can read a book, but it doesn't mean that you're going to go out and do what it says in that book. And that's the problem for many people. And a coach is there that will help encourage them and hold their hand as they're transitioning and planning and things like that. So yeah, some people can do it themselves, and that's why the books were written. But then a coach will coach to those books. There's all kinds of questions in there and whatnot, and that's what you'll be talking about with your coach. And they'll look for a progression in your ideas and concept, because what you want to do is you want to test out a lot of different scenarios too. Because the first plan you come up with might not be the best plan. So some people will say, you know what, I want to move to Mexico. I want to live there. So why don't you go down for a couple of weeks to Mexico and live there and see what it's like? Maybe you'll change your mind. And these are things that you need to test out, because really, without having experienced it, you're just guessing. And many people guess wrong. So we'll come up with different prototypes, different situations. Say, okay, let's test this A, B, and C, and let's find the optimum solution that works for you. But that takes time again, right? It's important. I get concerned when you read in a lot of books and a lot of articles, they talk about, oh, you should downsize and move to Florida and one of these senior communities or things like that. And it's just like people read it and they go, oh yeah, that's what I got to do because everyone else is doing it. And I go, no, because you'll find many times people will do that and they'll move, but what they're moving from is all their friends and family. And then one day they wake up and say, I don't want to be here. I want to be back home. And that's a big, expensive mistake. And that happens to a lot of people. So we're saying, no, go to that community, move in for a couple of weeks, test it out. Some people don't want to just hang around with old people. I think that's a problem too. I think you need to hang around with a mix of young and old, because the young people keep you, going. They challenge you and they teach you a lot too. You're teaching each other. So it's very important to have that mix. So these are things you need to think through, because it could be a costly mistake.
I think that's a great point. Hanging with those young 40 and 50-year-old whippersnappers, I think that's good for the rest of us.
They're sharp. Yeah, they're sharp.
Ford?
Mike, yeah, this is Ford. I have a comment and then a question. A lot of this consideration of retirement planning and retirement goals, it can feel daunting. It can feel overwhelming. It can feel alien and a little bit frightening. But let me just remind everyone that if you look at this almost like a project, it's almost like project management. Most people on this program and most people who have business and leadership experience have done a lot of project management, planning, analyzing, implementing, and you can transfer a lot of those proven business skills and personal skills into the planning and implementation of your retirement. This phase of your life doesn't have to feel so alien and so strange. It really can feel like a continuation of the way that you've planned and executed your successful career. So I think it's important to keep in mind that you already have all the skills and all the innate abilities you need in order to design and implement a wonderful retirement phase of your life. So that's my comment. Now, here's a question that was posed in chat from Mark Style. He says, related to your father's story, do you find that a successful retirement purpose is usually related to or very different than one's pre-retirement occupation, purpose, and identity?
It could be either or. It's amazing, the purposes people come up with. So they might stay in their lane where they have experience and knowledge, or they might cross over and do something completely different. It's just amazing when you look at that. Like just look at me as an example. I've never written a book before. I've never wrote before. I ended up writing 3 books. How did that happen? It's because I had a purpose for writing the books. I wanted to teach people and educate them. I wanted them to avoid ending up in retirement hell like I did. So that purpose was there, but to execute on the purpose, I had to write books. Oh, wait, I got better than that. When I was in the bank, I had acute stage fright. I couldn't talk in front of a group of people. I couldn't talk in front of like 10 people. I'd be, when they had meetings, you go around the room and talk a little bit about yourself and where you work and stuff like that. I used to take off so I didn't have to do it. That's how bad my stage fright was. But then I said, you know what? I got to be able to do seminars and do public speaking. And I had to find a way of doing it, totally out of my comfort zone. Almost gave me a heart attack when I thought about it. But I ended up joining Toastmasters. And guess what? I enjoy doing it today. But even at Toastmasters, I bailed on the first couple of meetings. I couldn't walk in the door. And then finally I got in there, and it was rough. But I stayed and I kept showing up. And look at me now, it changed my life. But these are things that, we have to think about, and we have to have a strong enough why to do something, and then we'll do it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. I want to make one point that you were kind of talking about, and this goes for all the business owners and senior executives and professionals like doctors or whatnot. At many of my seminars, people will come up to me and they'll tell me these stories. They're sad stories of people that struggled with retirement and ended up living a miserable life and dying before they should have. And I hear stories about doctors. I hear stories about senior executives that had these great careers, and they managed to make a lot of money, accumulate a lot in the way of retirement assets, but they were totally miserable because they couldn't find a good replacement source of purpose when they retired. They were no longer the big boss. They didn't have the big title. And they didn't have people that would take orders from them now. And they tried to pull that on their wives when they retired, and that didn't work out too well. And they were just miserable. They were lost. And that caused them to actually die soon in some cases. You think about a doctor, they go to school, they work so hard, and their mission is to save as many lives as possible. But when you can't do that anymore, how do you replace a calling? And that's what they struggle with. And that's what we try to find and say, okay, let's try to find a suitable source of purpose that will work for you. And for those people, many times it's volunteer work, but we have to find the right type of volunteer work where you can see the good that you're doing. So it's not like writing a check. It's like going out there and actually doing the work, working with others towards, a good cause. So it's like Habitat for Humanity. You go out there and actually drive nails into lumber, like Jimmy Carter, former president of the United States. He's in his 90s. He's still doing it. And why does it do it? Because it makes him feel good. So look at him. He was the president of the United States. He had to find suitable purpose. He did that through Habitat for Humanity. And there's a good lesson right there. So you got to be careful. All I'm saying is you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have a good, suitable source of purpose, you're going to be in trouble, and it's going to cost you. And that's why this seminar is so important. That's why I'm so passionate about it.
Mike, I have a comment and a question. A lot of people who I've met and worked with on their retirement planning have gone into volunteer work, that's true, or contributed their time and effort in some purposeful way. But also a lot of them I find go into creative pursuits. They take up perhaps an old interest in music or art or gardening or landscape architecture or pottery or what have you. So I'm not saying that's right for everyone, but I'm saying that a lot of people I've worked with have at least included that as part of their retirement plan. Now, here's a question that was posed by one of our participants. The question is, with COVID, 3 years has become a long time. Any thoughts or suggestions?
Or 3 years. Well, you know what? These 3 years, it would have been great to use these 3 years of downtime to figure these things out and come up with a good plan for when COVID lifted, so you could execute on it. My biggest concern right now is you're seeing a lot of people take early retirement. Either, you know, it's their plan to take it or they're forced to do it. They're retiring before their time. And I'm concerned about it. I think we're going to see a lot of these people come back into the workforce because a lot of them realize that they need to work, but they need to work at something they love to do. And, you know, working for money is there's nothing wrong with that. What you want is a lower stress lifestyle. You want more flexibility. You want to have time to do the fun things you do, and you want to have time to spend with your friends and family. So that's so important to you, and we know that. So to change, not to stop work, but to change the lifestyle, so it's not all encompassing, so demanding, but it's part of your lifestyle is where you want to be, I think. And that's what I created for myself. Let me get back to your art comment. It's very interesting because in Retirement Heaven or Hell, I talk about art, finding your art. I think it's, you know, for the creatives, it's so wonderful because it really fills up your life with joy because you're creating this thing and it's so meaningful to you. And then you ship it out to other people, the people that will appreciate. And I found a person, it was very interesting. He always wanted to do woodworking, but he wanted to make these bowls. So he would go into the woods and he would find a fallen tree and he would take it back and then use the machines on it and make this beautiful wood bowl out of it. That was his art, but it made him feel so good. But then what made him even feel better was he sold those bowls for a lot of money. But you see, that's finding your art, and you can derive work out of that too. And, you know, when you find your art, that's when you get in a state of flow because you're so absorbed in that activity and it makes you feel good. But if you can do, you know, art that you can make some money from, you know, life is really good. I'll tell you another quick story. My publicist's husband, when he was younger, he got to talk from his father because his father said one day, you know what, I know you like to do oil paintings and whatnot, but it's time to get real because, you know, you got to get a secure job and make some money if you ever want to get married and start a family and whatnot. And the son, yeah, he bought into it and he said, okay, I'll stop painting. I'll go to university and get a good job out of it. And he became a chemical engineer. And he worked in that job for 36 years until they packaged him off. And when he got the check, you know, he was looking at it and then he talked to his wife and he said, you know what? I'd like to try painting again. I really love to do that. And I had to give up on it and I had no time with it for the last 36 years, but I like to take another crack at it. So I like to use some of the severance money to create an art studio upstairs in the loft. And, you know, being a loving wife, she said, sure, we'll give it a shot. Without a word of a lie, this gentleman's making more money painting now than he made in that corporate shop. And he's loving it. That's not work for him. It's the passion. It's his art. And, you know, the guy lights out. I'm so jealous, right? And I could tell you so many stories of this, that people found their art. They found their passion. And once they connect using that Ikigai diagram, it's amazing. It's just amazing.
That's a great story, Mike. Here's another question from one of our participants. when you look at your most successful retirees, how many homes do most own in retirement? Is there any correlation with their happiness?
We're finding now that a lot of people want to stay in their homes for the duration. So instead of going to a retirement home or a nursing home, best case for them is they would pass away at home in the comfort of their own home, and bring in home care if they needed it, because they're comfortable in their homes and things like that. The only thing that we caution is that sometimes you can have too much house. So maybe you had a big house because the kids were there, and maybe you have 5 bedrooms or whatever. There's nothing wrong with downsizing it to make it more manageable and more comfortable, but you want to stay in the community you're familiar with. I think it's a big mistake to downsize and move somewhere else, and you lose contact with the community and friends and family, because that's a huge cost that you can't recover from.
Yeah.
So many people say move to a cheaper country, cheaper lifestyle, while you're leaving everyone behind, right? You have
every book, every article, every video, every client I've worked with in retirement, there's one theme that seems to be repeated over and over and over as kind of like a cardinal rule, which is the most important predictor of happiness in retirement is close relationships with people you know very well and who know you very well. It's very sexy to talk about moving to Tahiti and living on the beach, and it makes for good copy. But in the real world, what seems to matter most is the support, the intimacy, the connection that we get from our inner circle, from our connections. It's about connectedness. That is what seems to be the biggest predictor of happiness in retirement.
When I wrote the 9 retirement principles, I made relationships number 1.
Right.
Because it's been proven. And we experienced it during the pandemic, what it felt like not being able to be with our friends and family, not being able to hug someone, not being able to go to the birthday party and celebrate and things like that. There's been so many studies on it, and they said the strength of your relationships can reduce mortality risk by up to 40%. That's just amazing when you think about it, right? So why would you compromise that? Why would you throw that away and move to Tahiti? Well, it's going to cost you in terms of happiness and longevity. It is. But some people can get away with it because they're a little bit selfish, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word, but it wouldn't work for us, right? It just would. I'd lose my mind, not being able to be around my family.
Hey, Mike. I'm sorry, Ford, were you going to say something?
No, please go ahead, Ken.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes. I just wanted to ask if anybody wanted to speak up with a question. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Michael Golden, but I saw you had your camera on. If you have a question, feel free to jump in. And then I have one final question for us to wrap up.
Thank you. My question was the impatience around 3 years. So.
Oh, about the COVID, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I did some of this during COVID. So, but we sell businesses to their employees through ESOPs, and we've got lots of clients who are saying, I was going to sell in 3 years, but COVID proves to me that life is short. I want to sell now, even though it's for less.
Oh yeah.
So
it's changed a lot of opinions and plans for the future. COVID was the wake up call. And you just got to hope that they're making the right move, because they're reacting to COVID, and you got to plan, you got to think it through and plan it out properly, because you could end up making a big mistake. What I like about COVID is the retirement lessons we gained. So we learned about the importance of relationships. We learned about the importance of having good health, right? We learned about the importance of having a good attitude, because people with a poor attitude during COVID lost their minds, right? All they did was complain all day about everything and how everything was falling in on them. And that cost them mentally. Like, there was a lot of mental health issues. And there were other things that we learned from COVID. So COVID was a very, very good test case for retirement. And a lot of people weren't happy with what they learned. That's the truth. So it was good for us that way. And that's why people are paying attention now. Yeah, when we talk about these things, because they said, yeah, I felt that. I experienced that. And I didn't like it.
I have a question. This is Linda Penrod. I think that people don't understand, though, the expense of, I have an elderly couple of parents. My father passed in 2020, and I've been working with my mother, their finances. And it's $75,000 to $100,000 a year to have someone come into the home. I think that is something that people really need, and maybe it would be a good course or a something for Beacon to sponsor a program on this. It is absolutely imperative that people put the pen to paper and look at the numbers, because I have friends going back to work, because there's no joke when you have to pay for health care and when you have to pay for, if you stay in your home, the taxes, et cetera, et cetera. People just are understating what it's like when you're going to be 80, 90 years old and not have enough. You're going to have to tap into your children, and that's not really, in my opinion, fair. So I think there has to be an awareness that you can have all these dreams, but you better look at the numbers.
Well, you have to know what's coming your way, and you have to be realistic about it, and you have to cover off the risks. So if they have a home, well, maybe that's the time you decide, well, we're going to have to sell the home to finance this, right?
Otherwise,
Hey, Mike, if you could, and I hate to put a time limit on you, but maybe take a minute as we wrap up. What do you think of the word retirement?
I hate it. I don't believe in it. I think it's gone by us. But I think it's important to have a distinction between working full time and what we're doing now. So really, I refer to it as a second life. So what we do in our first life is, work hard, save money and all that stuff, gain our financial freedom. And then in our second life, we use that freedom to create this great lifestyle for ourselves. But what I'm saying is don't let people dictate to you that you're not supposed to work and you're supposed to sit on the beach and all that stuff, because that's all nonsense, right? You got to create a lifestyle that will work for you during that second life. And I really believe the second life can be your best life of all, the best time of your life. And that's how you got to look at it and say, wow, what am I going to do to make it my best life? Because you got so many years ahead of you. It's great. I think people forget that 30 years is a long time. And you can do a lot of exciting things in 30 times. And you're going to become someone else. You're going to change. And it's your choice. Am I going to change for the better, or am I going to change for the worse?
Look, retirement used to be an end.
That's right.
People would retire. If they're lucky, they live another 2 years and they die.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was all the time. That's how it was with my grandfather, with my uncle. That's the way it used to be. But we have a very different situation now. We can't look at it anymore as an end. We have to look at it as a new beginning. That's or right. An encore career. And there are other words that people use besides the word retirement. Ken, you said, what about this word retirement? Well, earlier today, Charlie mentioned the word rewire or rewirement. There's also the word refire or refirement. And these are words that people are throwing around now, which can sound a little bit more positive, a little more exciting than the word retirement. So it's an interesting shift that's going on in our culture. It's not just about the money, as Mike said. It's very much about culture, lifestyle, expectations, changing our very definition of what this all means.
Well, you see, the wild card is increasing longevity. And like you said, retirement isn't like 2 years now. So it's almost like your second life will be just as long as your first life there. And I look at it this way. I say, okay, I played by the rules. I followed the status quo. I did my duty, my obligations. I worked hard, took care of the kids, made sure they had a good start in life. Now they're gone. Now I left my primary career behind. What am I going to do? And I'm so excited about it because there's so many wonderful things I can do. And another problem is that, we fall for this belief that our best time, our most productive and creative period is in our 20s. That's wrong. I learned that our most creative period, most productive period is in our 60s and 70s. And that can continue into our 80s and 90s. So don't believe all that nonsense. I know people working in their 90s and they're so creative. It's amazing what they're doing. And these are the stories we have to talk about. And because of increasing longevity, you're seeing this retirement change where there's these hybrid forms of retirement, many of which contain a work component because you need extra cash flow because you're living so long and you have to finance it. How can you save for 30 years and then live for another 30 years? The numbers don't match up, right? And people are going to realize that and say, no, I gotta take a different approach because I want to have a nice lifestyle. And to have a nice lifestyle, I need some additional money. So how am I going to get that?
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.